Great. So we're officially starting our meeting. And for today's agenda, I know some of you did not receive the agenda, so I'll just share it real quick. Can everybody see? Okay.
Yes, It's a little bit small, but I can see.
You could see? Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be, first in the agenda, we're going to be discussing, as we all know, we are Community Board 12 is working on researching and starting to look into starting our own not-for-profit organization. So today we're going to talk about surveying the community, our timeline, and then we are going to pass the mic to our speakers to give a quick introduction of maybe how we can collaborate. So I'm going to stop sharing this now. Okay. So first off, one of the most important parts of starting a not-for-profit organization is really starting to do the research, right? And assessing what are the needs of the community. And we're ready to do that. So George already handles assessing what are the needs of the community, but we want to go deeper into what are some of the things that are not caught in the assessment that he does. So the most important part is to actually survey the community. But because of COVID, where typically we would be doing things in person, is going to be a little harder to survey. So today we kind of want to talk about what are some of the ways that we can do that, and also some of the questions that we would want to ask our community neighbors and residents. Does anybody have any questions so far? So the thing about surveys is that we don't want to make it too extensive where people may not want to even complete it. We would like to keep it brief, but brief enough where we are touching some of the most important topics. So some ideas, and I'm looking forward to hearing your ideas too, is possibly breaking it down into categories with the usual suspects such as housing, food. We thought of education. Education encompasses a lot, right? So we can think of building equity, home ownership, licenses, right? How do we help our residents in this community more job ready and marketable? So what kind of licensings they may be interested in, like OSHA. There's a number of licensings that can help them be more marketable and get more positions. We can even address mental health, entrepreneurship. So I would like to ask some of you, what are some of the ideas that you think we should also, some of the topics and categories that we should include in our survey?
I think job training could be one, and I wish that gentleman that came on where he wanted to do that catering hall or whatever, that's a light industrial area. It would have been good if we had probably even like a vocational school or something.
A what?
A vocational school where
So like educational center?
Yeah, like so they could learn a trade.
Right.
Yeah.
And that what you're saying, like starting like that type of business, it could be like entrepreneurship. It could be like a category that we include in there.
Yeah, it could be like somewhere where you could learn, like it could be like the kids could learn electrical work, like, and then essentially they could become apprentices,
Right.
Probably mechanics. These days you could barely find a good mechanic for your car or, stuff like that. So
thank you for that. Yeah. So even like OSHA licenses,
all that
would be super helpful.
Also the food handling is something for those interested in those food trades.
Absolutely.
And another big area that we know that there's a disparity is within like healthcare. So accessing those things, because that's also a safety issue.
Right.
I think a safety assessment would be something beneficial too. I know, especially at the beginning of like last year, we were talking about bail reforms and just the feeling of people in the community with regard to those changes. And all of our representatives, had a lot to do with just those changes. So just maybe finding out ways that might be able to be addressed.
Okay. Safety assessment is important. As we know, our district was one of the hardest hit with COVID. So that's something that we definitely want to keep in mind, that, you know, this kind of situation may arise again. So a long-term plan.
Right. So can I also jump in just to say, to
Yes.
piggyback on what Mr. Isaac was saying? I think that that job training would be great, especially if we could partnership with like the plumbers union, or some other the unions where you have to become an apprentice, an electrician, those
Right.
type of trades where you know that the demand for those type of tradespeople,
Mm-hmm.
it's high, and the once they have that training, then they can also, it's a good paying job. It's not like I'm sending them into a dead end job. So that I think is would be very helpful for our community.
I like the idea of that because, you know, I'm a homeowner here, as many of you are, and a lot of times we're even looking for contractors. So even if we had like our in-house community contractors that we can kind of like provide a list to our residents of who they can reach out to within the community. So I think that training them for all of that would be important. So as you said, like plumbing, electricity, construction, home renovations, roofing, all kind of things. Thank you for that, Denise. Anyone else? For those who just joined us, Sydney, welcome. We're talking about assessing the community for some of the things that they would be interested in. And right now we're talking about, let's say like an educational center. What are some of the things that we should add to the Google document, the survey document? So if you have any ideas, please feel free to jump in.
Let
Yes,
me
Tom?
jump in right quick. So yeah, we already have, as far as the what you guys are proposing as far as the contractors, that already exists. That fact, I don't know the name of the I want to say it's a NHS, which is run by New York City, in the Department of oh, what am I trying to blank today? HPD kind of sort of runs this, but they already have that list. In fact, they're right across the street from the speaker's office. So that would be reinventing the wheel, you know, and so that's not something that you want to do if that resource exists already, which it already does. So
Okay.
I wouldn't go down that road. Down that route.
And
Can I ask you a question, Dr. Burke?
do they train people? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do they train
Well,
people?
as far as training, I don't know about the training piece, but I know that the contractors are already there. I can't answer that question, but I do know that, you know, there are a list of contractors, because I have the list. I don't know what it is, but again, I can't comment on whether or not they train people or not. That I don't know.
But I think that what we're trying to say is, how do we elevate, right, our residents? So for example, even though we may have that service here in-house, how do we help others that may not have the licensing or the qualifications be able to provide that service, and maybe even partner up with them and get some sort of contracts with them?
Ursula had her hand up.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that NHS does not offer training, but they do have the contractor list, and they offer low interest loans and sometimes grants.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, Soto, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Coming from an organization prior to where I'm in right now that offered a variety of services for communities, I just wanted to know if, I know that you have assessed the need, but have you mapped out the area, your area for services? Have you done that kind of mapping to know if your area already offers several types of services, or organizations in the area that provide these services, and who can you partner with in your area for these services?
That's part of like the research and planning that we want to do in the first phase that we would be doing now. So once, you know, like you said, we do assess what are some of the needs. And then like Dr. Burke just raised, because I wasn't aware of that, there is actually, like you were saying, some sort of company that is already doing the work. So then I guess people need to figure out, are there others, and are there others that offer the training? Yes.
So let me comment again. So to answer your question, Ms. Soto, so one of the things that was presented to me when I assumed this role was the idea of a resource guide. And I think actually one of the people on this call, Ms. Martin, Mrs. Martin, I should say, presented that as well as Mr. Alfredo. However, that's something that was presented to me back in 2019. And right now, nothing has come of it. And so I think, I had mentioned it at the February 2020 meeting in which the idea was presented. And then Mr. Both of them were actually supposed to take the lead on that. And as I said, nothing has come of it. But that's to Ms. Soto's point, as far as what could happen, what resources are there. I think that would make the job a lot easier, so that you will know exactly what is there. So I think I have the template that Alfredo, I think I made a copy of it or something like that, but I have that, and I think that would help. So, if you want to meet me at my office, in the coming days, then, that'll be fine. And then that way I can, have you guys make a photocopy of that, whenever, Ursula or our district managers in the office, and we can just make a photocopy. And I think that'll jumpstart you instead of, trying to do a Google Docs and start from there. I think, that'll, get you started a lot quicker.
That'll be helpful.
As far as what you're talking about goes,
Yeah. No, that's super useful. So yeah, we'll plan for that. I guess I can update it as I call around. Thank you for that, Mia. Any other questions or suggestions regarding surveying the community? Yes, Alex.
All right. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Wint. I'm the new Community Relations Director for Speaker Hasty's office. I know a few of the faces, but anyone who I'm not really familiar with will have more than enough time to get acquainted. So, I'll go over a few bullet points because I understand the objective I think that you're trying to do. But when it comes to mapping out the area, it gets a little tricky when you're talking about partnerships. So for instance, with us, even though we have jurisdiction over the state, we tend to primarily focus just on our assembly district, which is District 83. And that overlaps with, Senator Bailey's district, with Councilman Riley's district, with Congressman Bowman's district, as well as the education districts that are within our confines. So I think whenever you're mapping out your parameters, that's important to know. And the reason I say that is you can extend it to as far as the South Bronx. I think that's great, but we would be limited in our participation, whereas another elected official who covers that area would be able to take up the mantle. Another aspect I wanted to highlight was when you're talking about surveying, we have to remember that we have a large population within the city. So you'd have to decide if you're going to include them, and if so, what parameters you would need to do that, as well as making sure that the survey is multi-language. It can't just be English. I think we've all seen in the past where I don't know if George is still on, but we attempted to do a survey, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And what I found personally working during that time was, it's not that the resources aren't there. In my opinion, it's that they're not getting to so I heard mention of licensures for plumbing and for mechanic and so forth. All those resources are already there. For instance, you have SUNY EOC, which does free vocational training. The Accelerator Scholarship, which is, it's a great opportunity. When I went to school, we didn't have that. And now you can go to a junior SUNY school for free, and young people are not taking advantage of it. So when we talk about resources, I think we should exhaust the options that are already there before we attempt to reinvent the wheel or to create anything new. Believe me, 9 out of 10 times, if you come up with any resource, I can tell you off the back of my head, something that pertains to it. And it's because I've been working in government for close to 9 years. So when it comes to housing, food, education, ownership, license, a lot of it is already there. I think the focus is just getting people to take advantage of it and making sure that they're aware of how to go about applying and utilizing it. It's just my 2 cents.
Thank you for raising that. And Sydney, I see you raise your hand. I'm going to come right to you next. Alex, part of the reason why we invited you too is because it's easier for us if we do have a community where we are sharing information. So if you do already have some sort of like a list or some sort of informational doc that you can share with us of resources that you already know exist, and then we would have to see what are the requirements to get there. I think another part of what we want to do is that we want to also make sure that we are offering these services, whether it's educational, whatever it is that we decide to do within this district, that, you know, it's close for them to get to, it's easily accessible. So that's something I know that we've been thinking about. But we would love to know what are some of the resources that are already there, because then those are things that we can even put on our community board website. What are some of the resources that they can get access to? So if you can help us with that, that would be huge.
Okay. So how about we do this at the conclusion of tonight's meeting? Just give me like a few categories, whether it's housing, school, so forth and etc. And then I will put together maybe 3 or 4 that in that category, and you can use it. Now, I do want to point out, however, just for anyone that's on the call, from the state standpoint, I'm limited in what I can share. So, for instance, anything that's for profit, I'm not legal to share it, because then I would be favoring one specific business over the other, and of course, that I can't do.
Okay. And that'll be useful for us to know, because what we're trying to offer, first, what we want to do is get the needs and get the funding to implement these initiatives, so that hopefully there wouldn't be a cost to it, just so that, but as much information as we get from all of you, the more that we can compile. And then even if it's that when we're doing our surveying, if somebody is interested in some of these services that already are out there, then we can just pass on that information to them as well. So it'll still be useful to have all of that. Thank you, Alex. Sydney?
Hi. As Dr. Burke was bringing up earlier, I think that it would be kind of helpful if there was, like, after, because I agree the resources are there, it's just that they're not being brought to the community. The community isn't aware of them. If we could make it like accessible in terms of like linking things to the community board website or whatever the case may be. But to his point about Mr. Wint's point about things like the Excelsior Scholarship, he also noted that there is a large undocumented population in the city. And from my perspective as a college student, there are terms and conditions with everything. You know, you can only apply for Excelsior if you fill out FAFSA and then fill out TAP. Those things require you to have a social. You can't get financial aid without a social. So with that being said, it's I think that it's important that regardless of what the survey produces, we should have like a separate resource guide or resource center for undocumented people.
Yes, that is definitely the plan. And that's part of what we want to do to make sure that we're providing all these services and resources for everyone in the community, not just a selective group. Undocumented is definitely part of the plan of how we can help them also build equity.
I agree. And I'm sorry, was that Ms. Blair speaking? The previous speaker? Not sure who it was. Okay. Well, you're absolutely right. And it can be challenging, trust me, I know. For those of you who grew up or are part of the local community, you may have heard my story. So I actually went to undergrad while I was undocumented, before my situation was, I guess, legalized, for a better sense of term. So I'm well aware of the challenges, which is why I think that the Excelsior Scholarship is not something that I was able to participate in when I went to school. But I know that New York State is trying to finalize the New York State DREAM Act, which would make undocumented students have the ability to afford schooling. But then again, those were just two examples off the tip of my head. Trust me, there's so many options for school. They'll also have University of the People, which is the first, if I'm not mistaken, it's the first national free tuition based college. So I would love to sit down and put together like all these different resources and the pipelines, because trust me, there is a lot. It's just a matter of figuring out what applies for each person. But I understand where you're coming from, and you're absolutely right.
That would be super helpful, Alex. So thank you for that. We definitely need that. Let me see. Sydney, you also mentioned how's the survey going to be conducted? We're kind of brainstorming now. Multiple choice, but I do feel like we should leave it in some of the categories. Maybe if it's that we include other, where if we haven't touched on some of the things that they would be interested in, that maybe they can add that other, what that would be as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Lucille.
I was gonna say that I was thinking about that SUNY Continuing Education Center that Alex mentioned as well. And I was thinking that some of these community-based providers that we already have could also give us insight as to what some of the challenges are as well. Because they've already been working on the ground, and in these different contexts, we have different community-based organizations that are already focusing on different populations within our community. And they could probably give us great insight as to what those needs are, because some people aren't necessarily going to partake in a survey, no matter how we go about putting it out there. But the providers, they would already have somewhat of that insight.
That's a great idea, Lucille. Thank you for that. So partnering up with providers that may already have that data. I know that safety and that those issues have been coming up a lot. I mean, just last week I woke up to a SWAT team right outside my door, and tons of cops and a sniper. And it was two young adult males that were having feuds and conflict for a year. So I do feel like we should brainstorm, because we do have, I feel like, programs for elders, moms, children, youth, but I feel like we don't have enough. And I've been trying to see what kind of male youth services are in this neighborhood. I haven't really come across many, but Alex, I don't know if you may know of any, if you can include that too. Stuff for the male, for the young man in our community.
Absolutely. So we have the MBK program. We have MBK stands for My Brother Keeper.
Yes.
I know at Lehman College, I'm trying to remember the name of their program. I should know it because I was a part of it, but that just goes to show you how long ago that was. But part of my new responsibility as director is I took over Kevin Riley's position. And for those of you who knew Kevin, he was big on senior workouts, and that was his primary focal point. So I'm still mapping out what my agenda is going to be for this area. I haven't really together the pen to the paper, so to speak, yet. But for males, again, this is why it's important for us to put all the resources in one place, because I'm actually reading the chat now and I see someone mentioned a yellow book. So for those of you who have utilized NYC's Green Book system, New York City Green Book is like a catalog where you can go on and you can find pretty much everybody in the state, city, and federal government. It's a great resource to cut through the tape, so to speak. So let's say, for instance, you're trying to contact the governor's office. Now, what a lot of people realize is you're not going to get Andrew Cuomo on the phone, but for some reason they think they are. However, if you know how to maneuver the site, you say, hey, I'm going to contact the governor's office because I have a question based on taxes, or I have a question based on agriculture. You log on to New York City Green Book, you scroll down to the tab that says state, you go to the governor's office, and all you have to do is just scroll down until you find the appropriate tab that fits your search. So I think if we can create something like that where it's resource-based, it would definitely solve a lot of things that I think we're having in the community as far as not being able to understand what is where, so to speak. But yeah, to answer your original questions, there are a few programs for males. I know that there are more programs for females within this district, such as the Talitha Kumai Academy. But there's like one and two for males. I know MBK is one of them, and gosh, there's one at Lehman. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but
That's fine. You'll let us know. Denise, I love your comment. If the programs exist, but no one knows about the criteria or availability, then CB12 should be the bridge to get that information out. And that's definitely our intent. The more information we know, the more information we can put on our website. We can talk about it even in our general board meetings. So the more information we know, the less we'll be likely to duplicate services and the more information our neighbors can have and resources. So that would be great. Adriana wrote, how can we make more young adults care about the community and betterment? That's super important. I think part of that, and you can all chime in, is incorporating mental health, kind of like, I don't want to call it workshops, but awareness and education, because it's all tied in. You know, I see that here in my neighborhood, there's a lot of young men, the same way they take care of their cars, right? Something that they feel they own. We need to teach them how to do that, even if it's property they're renting. So those are some things we can brainstorm. I do want to move on a little bit because does anyone else have anything to say? Dr. Burke, yes?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm concerned that we're starting to bite off more than we can chew. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, because I don't remember the minutes from the last meeting. What I would like to do is see us figure out, because I think we were talking about what type of structure that we wanted. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of sort of not hearing that on this discussion right now. So I think we kind of sort of need to rein it in a bit and figure out what type of structure we want first. Then, you know, I think the next step would be to, you know, figure out, you know, what's available. And again, that's where the resource guide comes in. Now, I know that, you know, I was working with Ms. Blair on, you know, the resource, and I appreciate that. That ran into a snag, but you know, we're still working out the logistics as far as outreach, and so that's to Mr. Wynn's point about outreach. And I think we all need to do a better job of outreach. And so I think, you know, I'll just leave it at that. So I'm not trying to be a party pooper, because as I said, we want to look at this committee for that, for a purpose. But, you know, I think some of the things that you're talking about already exist. And so I think we need to somewhat narrow our focus. That's just, again, just my opinion, if I can just suggest that.
Yes. And when you're saying structure, are you talking about the structure of how we're going to survey and the form?
Well, I'm talking about the structure of the committee. You know, is it feasible? You know, what I'm saying is we're supposed to be the purpose, because remember the mandate for this committee runs out on June 30th of this year. So some of the stuff that you guys are talking about already is already being implemented. You know what I mean? Some of the things. And so that's, you know, as I think, as I said earlier, as Mr. Winner said, you know, we're talking about reinventing the wheel. We have until June 30 of this year to determine whether or not this is going to be reauthorized or not. And so that's why I said, you know, the focus, I think, needs to be a hell of a lot more narrow than what I'm hearing right now.
Right. The holidays put a little bit of an obstacle in terms of time, but right now we have Alex from Speaker Hastie's office. I'm also connecting with Senator Bailey's office and a newly elected council member Riley's office, because I would love to get the same thing where we're asking the resources that they're aware of as well, so that we can have it from their offices as well. And I think that's going to help us narrow it down a lot. And then the next part of that is, because we don't have a lot of time, is actually getting that survey out there just as well to assess what the people are saying. And this is why I invited, and then we'll talk about the time frame, but this is why I invited Mia and Alex. Mia Sota, I'd like to introduce her because she was instrumental in helping us actually secure like a volunteer team. That's one of the aspects. There's also the other part of the pro bono attorney stuff. So I'd like to give the floor to Mia to talk a little bit about the organization she's with.
everyone. My name is Mia Soto. I'm the community organizer, but also the diversity, equity, inclusion coordinator at the New York Lawyers of the Public Interest. We are a civil rights organization that focuses on health justice, disability justice, and environmental justice. But prior to joining NILP, as we call it, I was a community organizer and community coordinator for nonprofit organizations and CBOs throughout Brooklyn. I've also worked with city council members before, so I've been around the Triborough area working with communities for the last perhaps 4 years. I'm relatively young in this field, but always eager to help and learn alongside with you all. So, not speaking in part of NILP, what NILP is able to do, because of course we need to learn more about your efforts and just have more of a sense as to what you're envisioning in order to really be able to say that NILP is going to be doing something for everyone. But I'm really happy that we were able to connect Beatrice with our Pro Bono Clearinghouse program, which offers young starting organizations or small startups, especially nonprofit organizations or individuals who are looking to create a nonprofit, with legal resources that are free in order to, make sure every legal aspect of starting a business, starting a nonprofit is taken care of. So in terms of any legalities, in terms of creating a 503c organization, they'll be able to help you out and connect you and Beatrice and whoever is interested in becoming the founders of that organization to legal pro bono attorneys who can help you out. And in terms of anything related to community organizing, community outreach, strategy, I'm more than happy to provide that kind of support outside of the NILP aspect, because unfortunately I have a very limited NILP capacity, but happy to do so after work hours and just being an available resource for you all. I have a lot of expertise in creating big volunteer networks. So happy to start some kind of online volunteer program for you all in order to help you out in terms of canvassing the community, whether it's via social media, electronic, or in person, face-to-face. I'm also very savvy in social media, and I've taken care of a lot of social media campaigns. So happy to help in any way possible. Before, I was the coordinator of a health justice program at a community-based organization called Mixteca, and I partnered with probably 100 plus organizations in order to bring services to the community. We really focused on undocumented populations in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And so I partnered with a lot of organizations and service providers who would be able to come into the space to provide their services, but also provide information and resource information about their services. So one of the main ideas that I was just thinking about in your situation, you may not be able to form the nonprofit organization that you're thinking about in the short amount of time that you have, because you have a June 30th deadline. But what you can start doing in the process is creating either online, like Zoom fair, or some kind of event for you to be able to bring your community members in, but also be able to bring resources to the community members. So inviting different individuals like Alex, who can talk a little bit about the assembly does, or what can they provide in terms of services, walking hours, and different, of course, organizations and any outreach individuals that they can come. What I'm hearing is more about an idea of starting organization, like a navigational center, right? Not just providing services, but also trying to navigate folks through the different barriers and different resources out there, and just connecting the individuals to those resources. I think that's the most important. Educating folks that there are available resources out there, and just bringing that information into the space. Some people may just not know at all. There are a lot of information and resources, especially free services for individuals who are low income or who are uninsured or don't have a job or they're unemployed. So happy to be able to brainstorm with you all on the next steps on what we can or you can do, but also provide you different services and do a little bit more digging. I worked a little bit, well, I worked in doing outreach in the Bronx before, so I'm well aware of like the situation, different resources available there, but happy to be able to provide more support in that end.
Thank you so much, Mia. We're going to definitely need that, and we'll definitely be collaborating with you. Thank you so much for that. I have a question because when we, for example, when we're thinking of how we're going to be surveying everything pretty much because of COVID should be remote, are we able to, when we have our general board meetings, would we be able to like do an online, like a quick Google survey while we have those members, not just the board members, but residents that join from the district? Is that something that we can do, Dr. Burke or Egeria?
Okay, so I heard that. So I think I heard the question. Just repeat it again for clarity, please.
So while we do our general board meetings, and you know, we have the public component to it first, would we be able to survey during our general board meetings?
It's funny you should say that because the person that's supposed to be working on that for us was on the call, and I see where she disappeared. And I'm disappointed because she could answer that question. So Nicole Weir is actually supposed to be working on that. In fact, I was going to ask the same question. And yeah, so to answer that question, that's something that we're working on. So one of the things that I promised was making the meeting go a hell of a lot faster because, as I said, in fact, I'm determined that we are not going to be in 3-hour meetings anymore. And so Nicole Weir had some ideas in which she's supposed to be helping me streamline that to answer the very question that you're talking about. But as I said before, I don't have an answer because I think I asked her about it last week and she's supposed to have something for me this week, which of course I still don't have. And again, she dropped off of your call. So
I know on Zoom it's a lot. We're able to do it on Zoom. I'm just not sure if through WebEx we're able to.
Okay. I would need some. Okay, Ursula is raising her hand. I would need some help with that or training with that. But I think the answer is yes, you can do it.
Okay.
I'm just unfamiliar as to how. So I'll have let Ursula hear what she's got to say, and then go from there.
No, I was just gonna ask, can't we do it the same way we did the voting for our officers?
Well, yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah.
I think you get the results right away.
Yeah, I think because I'm sorry, because I think what's supposed to happen is in order for things to be streamlined, and I think this is what Ms. Cornell is asking, is that, and again, Clinton may be able to help out as well. I know he was learning, but you know, I think what I was told was that with Dr. Burke, we can do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, fine, hell, if that makes it go faster, then let's make it happen. I just haven't had a chance to do it because, as I said before, I believe in delegating. And if people tell me they're going to do something, then you know they should do it. So that's where I am with that. So I can't. The answer is yes, Beatrice, we can. I don't have the expertise to do it. I see Sydney's got her hand up, but you know maybe some people can chime in and help to answer that question for you. Okay, so that we can get some clarity.
Dr. Burke, this is Ted. I just want to agree with you that you can actually do a poll in WebEx.
Right.
Matter of fact, if anyone would click on the three, there should be 3 dots at the bottom of your screen. If you click on those, you'll see the option for polling.
That's where it is.
Okay. So am I allowed to like create, because I'm learning like the bylaws and all that, am I allowed to create, just like to start throwing in questions and then sharing with the rest of the community board members so that we can kind of like start getting input if they agree with some of the questions that we will be asking and if they have other ideas and suggestions?
I think what I would do, if you're trying to do it in the middle of a meeting, that's where it can kind of get messy. My suggestion would be, you know, create a document and get it out to the general board prior to the meetings.
Right.
And I think because as you see what happens, even with bylaws, even when Carla has everything done, all her I's dotted and T's crossed, because some people come in and don't really read it, then you will have problems, and then the meeting can get bogged down, kind of sort of like what happened last night. So my suggestion would be to create whatever list you want now, then instead of in meeting and then go from there. Now there are the in meeting capabilities, but as I said before, I would need to someone to show me how to do it. And I see what Sydney, like I said, may be able to help me, because I see she's got her hand raised, or somebody like that. But my suggestion would be to do it beforehand, and in that way you can kind of sort of have your answers done prior to the meeting, and then we can just discuss the most popular answer during the meeting.
Wonderful. So I am allowed to do that. It wouldn't be like, I know George was saying yesterday, we can't have conversations. Things have to be brought up in the meeting. I would be allowed to.
Well, you know what I mean. Anyway, yeah. I'm not going to discuss that right about now. But I would like to close. When you finish with your meeting, I would like to say something to the people assembles here. But as far as discussion, I mean, I think that you have to be able to. I mean, my personal opinion, that's one of the most asinine things that I've heard. That you can't discuss things with people or board members. I just think that's idiotic. And when I hear things that are idiotic, I normally don't respond to that. So my suggestion to you would be, especially if we're talking about during the course of a meeting, is to have the document prepared beforehand, or if you know how to do Google Docs, that's great. And in that way, you can have the question answered, and then go from there.
Wonderful.
That's
Just so that we're not wasting time and we get it done before the actual meeting.
Exactly.
I will definitely do that.
Right, guys. Especially at like this next meeting, for instance, I don't really anticipate bringing up any. I mean, because we have a lot of voting items. I mean, we've got 5 committee items that we've got to vote on at the next meeting, and so I'm factoring that in. Plus, of course, we've got new councilmen. We've got our new councilman that wants to come in, because he called me. I want to say he called me earlier this week. And then we've got another councilman that wants to come in. So this is the political season where everybody wants to come in. So you've got to factor that in too.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Burke. Sydney, you have raised.
What I wanted to say to that was, one, I think that it should be before the meeting. So if like George or even Ursula, when they send out the invite, they could make sure that it's like highlighted, like, hey, please fill this out before the meeting starts. But then again, we have to also think about the people who attend our meetings. As with like a conversation I had with Dr. Burke, when I was speaking to him about like outreach, he mentioned the fact that we have people who don't even have emails. Like, they know about the meetings because they know somebody from the board, and that person is letting them know to dial in. We have to consider the fact that we have a lot of dial-in call people. Like, for example, right now we have 2 people. So how do we make sure that those people fill out the survey?
I think it would really take me just reaching out to them via a phone call, and then maybe figuring out a way to send it to them that way.
Or you could, even if the meeting, like, even if we proceed with the meeting, that, like, you get the survey before the meeting with the meeting invite. For those who did not fill out the survey, we could like send them a text message or something like that. Or I don't know how that would work. I think that kind of gets tricky in terms of like outreach, but that could also work.
Thank you, Sydney. It's 5:48. Does anybody else have any comments?
I just want to say something. Like Adriana, I wanted to know what is your last name?
Who's?
Adriana.
wants to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, there are a couple of people who's on here. Naomi Atherton.
Okay, they want to know my last name?
Yeah, are these board members?
No, no, no. She's one of my interns. So I'm just
Oh,
her, yeah.
okay, cool. Hi, Naomi.
Naomi, thank you for joining. My last name is Coronel. Alex has my contact information.
Okay,
Thank you, Naomi, for joining.
all right. And you had the two telephone numbers. One ends in 98 and one ends in 85. I was wondering, who are those people?
Jerome Brown, I'm one of the board members also.
Okay. Hey, Jerome.
Jerome, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And the other person, 85? Okay.
That's probably me, Jerome Brown.
Okay. And who is it?
258-66.
And
Okay.
the 98? Oh, that's Adriana.
Adriana. Okay.
Thank you, Adriana, for joining. Okay, so basically to sum it up, Alex will be looking forward for those resources. I'm going to continue to do some of my own research and see what other resources are there so that we can kind of compile a list that'll help us narrow down. I'll be sending out a first draft of some questions to all of the board members. I'll figure out a way to connect with those that don't have an email, and then I'll be looking for the other board members' input on what they think, any suggestions or additions. And then I'll be continuing to connect with Mia Soto, and I'll talk to Dr. Burke and Ajiria separately about the services, the pro bono services they offer, and if we want to start a conversation with them as well.
Okay.
Any questions? Mia, Alex, we appreciate you joining us. This is part of building community and us assessing what the needs are and how to implement initiatives and services. So thank you for joining.
Of course, thank you.
My pleasure.
Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Well, yes, it sounds like you're getting ready to adjourn, Madam Chair.
It sounds that way unless anyone has an objection.
Well, no. So let me make a comment before you adjourn, because you're going to need a motion to adjourn. By the way, who are you recording this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you, and I see where Ursula's on here. So like I said, we're going to talk a little bit later. But for those of you that was on last night's call, as a leader, it's my job to make certain that, I lead effectively. And the one thing that I do not like to do is lose my cool. And so, there are certain comments that when they're made, I just ignore because I think they're stupid. And so there was some that were made last night that, for those of you that were there, that was stupid and I ignored. And then there were some that I just attacked head on, because the one thing I'm not going to do is allow myself to be attacked or any board member, especially when you're doing good work. And I don't give a damn who you are. But for my role, I'm going to say that if you were there and you were, some board members were upset, I'm going to apologize for my role as far as, contributing to the discourse, but I will not allow anyone to attack any member of this board or me or anybody else. So obviously there are some conversations that, and if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. If you weren't there, then I'm not going to mention it. But obviously there are some conversations that need to be had, and they will be had. And like I said, I appreciate, I just want to say publicly, Ursula, because as I said, the one thing that I invite is if anything that I do wrong, then feel free to reach out to me. And like I say, most of you have my number, so you can reach out to me. So I will do that if any of you felt moribund as a result of some of the discourse that happened last night. So that's coming from me.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Burke.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Burke. All right. So if you're going to close now, and we'll put to the floor to make a motion for closing.
This is John Isaac. I would like to make a motion to close.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Somebody second it?
I'd like to second.
All
Thank you,
right.
Ursula.
Well, it has to come from a committee member, Mrs. Bond, even though we love you. I'm trying to think. I don't think you're on the nonprofit committee. I know Clinton is, so it would have to come from somebody like
Clinton, I just want to keep hanging.
Clinton or Hussein?
Come on, man. You an HBCU graduate, man. We're supposed to be happy today.
But he's a Knicks fan. We don't let Knicks fans.
I'm speaking. I said,
Clinton, what you say? You freezing?
I don't know.
You HBCU. You look. This is our day. We got a vice president, right? This is not. Look, don't get me started. Don't.
That's right.
Day, by the way.
Get to some pearls.
I second.
I ain't wearing no pearls, man. Well, look, we have pearls as cues, but it's a totally different thing. Anyway, you need to talk to AKs about that. Anyway, man, I'm out, man. Listen, y'all take care, okay?
Yeah. Do you know how I get the recording? I'll reach out to Ursula for the recording.
No. So what you do is, like, you can stop the recording if the motion is passed, and I'm assuming that it has.
Okay.
So it's passed. Then what you do is you hit the record button, like, because right now it's still recording.
So I hit stop.
If you want to save the files, right? You stop it, and it's going to ask you if you want to save the files. So then you click on that.